Welcome back to the Resistance Broadcast. It's episode 94, not to be confused with Docking Bay 94. I'm your host, John Hoey. We have a very special show for you tonight, with a lot of news and coverage about The Last Jedi, which hits theaters in just 10 days. I can't believe we're saying that, 10 days. We've waited so long, but... To kick off the 10-day countdown, we have a very special guest joining us tonight. But first, let's say hi to way less important people, the leaders of the Resistance. First, we have former world-famous heavy metal musician James Baney. What's up, James?
Rock on, man. No, I'm just kidding. That's not even my personality at all. No, I got a good feeling about tonight. Call it the Force, call it, the Holy Spirit. I don't know. Just, I got a good feeling about the episode. I'm excited to talk Star Wars, and I'm excited to talk with our guest.
And the guy who will give you a stern look if you badmouth Jar Jar Binks, it's Bill Sheehy. What's up, Bill?
Listen, Ahmed Best is very underrated, so give him some props. Happy to be here. Happy to be joined by our guest. Let's talk some Star Wars.
All right. And on behalf of Star Wars Newsnet and the Resistance Broadcast, we want to welcome our special guest joining the Resistance tonight. He is a writer, a novelist. His novel Brutal Youth is available on Amazon for purchase. A self-proclaimed rabble-rouser, which I had to Google, and what we like to refer to as the Walter Cronkite of Star Wars for Entertainment Weekly, and as Bill refers to him, the President. It is Anthony Breznican. Welcome, Anthony.
Woo! Welcome. Thanks for letting me be on the show.
Yes, sir.
I like that Walter Cronkite. That's the way it was in the galaxy, far, far away.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Ken Burns, but not. I think people know Cronkite more than Burns.
I definitely took my glasses off and wiped my brow when Han Solo met his fate in the Force Awakens. Very Cronkite when JFK died.
Yeah.
Oh yes. All right, so first, before we get into our news, we're going to go through our poll results from last week, and we asked you, with roughly 2 weeks to go until The Last Jedi, do you feel you know more about the film than you did going into The Force Awakens? And 19% of you said you feel about the same. 33% of you out there said yes, you feel like you do know more. And 48% of you said no. So you feel that you know less going into the film. And the best comment went to listener Matt Cave at _Matt Cave. And he said, at this point before The Force Awakens, I knew pretty much the entire movie. I feel like we know so little about The Last Jedi in comparison. How do you guys feel about that? I kind of feel a little bit like that too.
I think for the exception of Rey, I don't think we knew. I didn't know a whole lot going into that movie. But I tried to stay away from spoilers, but I understand where he's coming from.
I remember going into The Force Awakens that it felt like we didn't know anything about the characters, and now we know a lot about them, so we can already start to draw our own storylines from that. But I did see some other commenters saying that, we haven't seen so much as two lightsabers on screen at the same time. We don't know who's going to fight who, and a lot of those big story elements where things change. I mean, you look at all the trailers we've had in the past where you're like, oh, look, it's Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. That's, this big fight that we're going to get. I can't wait for that. But it's we don't have any clue what we're getting in this movie, at least as far as the war part of Star Wars is concerned. Anthony, what do you think about that?
Well, I feel like I know a fair amount going in to the movie. Maybe a little more than The Force Awakens. So, but that's...
Is that you personally, or is that based on the marketing you've seen so far?
That's me personally. So,
okay.
But there are, as Donald Rumsfeld used to say, known knowns and known unknowns. I know certain things that I don't know. You know what I mean? There are certain parts of the movie where I'm
absolutely.
Okay, I'm not quite sure where it goes from here. I think there are some twists that have been very well protected. And I think those will hopefully catch people off guard.
I hope so too. And I feel kind of the same way. I feel like they may have learned some lessons from some things that occurred during The Force Awakens, because some things really hit the pavement pretty early. So it looks like they filled some cracks, as they say. But before we get into the news, we do have a giveaway winner announcement. And we are giving away an officially licensed Boba Fett 22-ounce collector's ceramic stein just in time for the holidays. And as we typically like to do here, I need a drum roll, please.
Joy to the world.
And the winner is Dragon Debbie, at Dragon Debbie, Debbie Anderson, congratulations, you are the winner of the Boba Fett ceramic collectible, officially licensed Disney Stein. So we're going to get in touch with you, get your information, and get that out to you. So congratulations, Debbie. A little round of applause for Debbie. She's entered all of our contests, and she finally won one. So, but now it is time to get into the news in our segment called Newsnet. James, what's happening in news?
Well, continuing with all the great coverage we got from Entertainment Weekly last week, now we have another one covering the First Order's BB-9E. Droid designer Neil Scanlon had this to say about the creation. BB-8 has this huge personality and this huge heart. But you know, in a sense, I've always found it to have a sort of slightly manipulated quality. With BB-9E, we got back to literally the cold First Order sort of Empire version of what a BB unit might be. This was much more cold, calculative, much more direct. Somewhat inspired by HAL 9000 from 2001 A Space Odyssey, BB-9E is in fact what he described as a cold-hearted droid. But don't get too excited about seeing a lot of him in the movie. This article points out that he isn't going to be like an R2-D2 or a BB-8, but he'll still have a significant scene with his counterpart, and may after that kind of come off as more of a background character, akin to maybe like a mouse droid on the Death Star or something like that. Now, this is a first for us, but we have the author of that article with us tonight. So right away, Anthony, I'm going to throw this right over to you. How excited are you about having BB-9E in this movie? And are you personally a fan of the bad guy droids?
Well, that sounds like, I was going to say, that sounds like fake news to me. I don't know where you get your reports from there. Yeah, BB-9E is kind of cool. Like, I bought one of the toys to use as a prop for, we're doing this whole series of videos this week. You know, we do it every time a Star Wars film comes out. We do like 4 or 5 videos called like Secrets of The Force Awakens or Secrets of Rogue One, and it's really just a breakdown of like creatures or droids or often vehicles. You know, what's sort of what are the interesting specs on them and sort of what went into their design. Sometimes with a creature there's like an actor that they had in like a long ago actor like Lee Van Cleef or somebody who inspires an alien, or you know, the U-Wing fighter from Rogue One had kind of old school influences,
sure.
X-Wing jets, but like these different like wing patterns that seem to come from the prequels. And yeah, so this time we're talking about like BB-9E, which I think he sounds really cool. Like if you push the button on the toy, he has this weird electronic growl. And again, like you look at it and you get an impression from this thing, but it's working at you on a subconscious level. Like I didn't realize, oh yeah, if you look at it, it looks like the BB version of a like 1950s cop car, right?
Yeah,
like the,
yeah, absolutely.
BB-8 has like these cool like orange and silver panels, but that are kind of you know, oddly shaped. They're not like round or square. Like they're a little more avant-garde. And this has very rigid, like, grill patterns, very, like, much like Stephen King's Christine bearing down on you. But
yeah,
the black and white design is very Darth Vader and very Imperial, but it also looks like a police car. And this is a droid who patrols the First Order Star Destroyer that Supreme Leader Snoke uses. So I thought that was kind of neat. He's got like blue and red lights, so that's also sort of like the lights on top of a squad car. And if he detects you, man, he's gonna nail you. And he's got like also has a flat top. Like BB-8 has a round head, so he's got like the crew cut, you know, of like a cop from the 50s or a cop from now. I don't remember. You know, it's like that cop crew cut look. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. And then all through the rest of the week, we're talking. Like today, I did another report like that on the really what I think are kind of weird vehicles, the Canto Bight police speeders, which are like these little, like, I describe it as like a cross between a security guard Segway and a personal helicopter.
Yeah.
And like these, if you're piloting this thing, you're right in between two like vertical propellers, like the back rotor of the rear rotor of a helicopter, just sort of buzzing beside you. So there's no looking over the side unless you want a haircut. Get that BB-9E flat top.
To me, it like that speeder kind of looks like a little bit like a TIE fighter to an extent, because it's got those kind of like sharp pointed edges, and I don't know what it is. It feels like kind of like you said, kind of that police officer, like a mix between. For me, you said the Segway and the scooter, and then you add the TIE fighter to it, and that's what I get from it. But in terms of like BB-9E, I like the point that you made, and I think it's definitely very Imperial, very First Ordery, because like you have all the character and stuff that you have in BB-8, which is kind of like represents the Resistance and the Rebellion, where they're very kind of open and free thinking and like expressive things, as opposed to the BB-9E, which is very black and monotone, and it feels like you said, it kind of feels like the Vader of droids a little bit, because it's got like that dark look with the sharp angular edges, but at the same time, you know, it's really cool. I like it.
I like the comparisons in terms of, well, first I like the reference to Hal in 2001, because I remember seeing that movie when I was a kid and just being creeped out by Hal's voice and that blinking light and everything. So I'm not going to not see that now that I know that that's what the case is. But based on the comments, the comparisons between the two droids, I'm picturing, you know, BB-8 as like a naive kid, like he's the adventurous kid who doesn't really know better, like a kid touching a stove because he doesn't know what getting burnt is like. So I like that naivety, which makes him seem brave, but he may just not know better. And then you have this cold, calculated droid, which is the exact opposite what you guys have been saying here. And he almost has his own agenda. And I gather that it's not like he's an accessory where you're going to buy like a General Hux figure and it comes with BB-9E. You're going to buy BB-9E. Like Anthony, you were saying, I guess you have the Sphero or something like that?
It's not the Sphero. I forget which type. I think it's the Sahara.
Is it the pop vinyl?
No, it's a little... I don't think that's what it's called. I honestly forget the brand of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of merchandise out there. Yeah,
I picked it up because it's a little larger. Because when I do these videos, I want to have like a prop that I can point to and sort of showcase. And the bigger the prop, like the bigger the droid, the better. It's gonna show it up.
It's like a BB-9E the size of like a Suburban.
It's like the size of it's like the size. Yeah, not that big. Like the size of a cantaloupe.
Okay.
All right.
And its head kind of swivels, but it doesn't rotate around the body like the Sphero does. It just has a track on the bottom, like a tank track or a tractor, and it just sort of goes one direction and then the other. So it's not like the coolest toy, but it's a good prop for prop comedy and videos.
John, you were talking about the naivety of BB-8, but don't forget that in the Poe Dameron comic, when he pops up his little flame, they've started to question what that actually means. It might not be a thumbs up.
Yeah.
So he might kind of have an idea of what he means when he's doing stuff. I'm going to ask Anthony a quick question, too. Between the police patrol BB-9E and the police patrol the Canto Bight, who do you think's a better cop?
I think BB-9E is a little more ruthless.
BB-9E.
The Canto Bight police are a little fancier. Like even their uniforms are a little more like formal dress. They're not like badasses.
I wonder if they're like absent-minded cops like Barney Fife, or if they're on point on that casino.
I think they're more like security guards, you know, than like actual like patrolling. So I have a feeling they chase after Finn and
They're
Rose
not Judge Dredd.
Yeah. No, they're not quite like that.
Well, you know, hot off the heels of all of the EW stuff that you've done this week, we have you on the show. I want to ask a couple questions. I mean, how does it feel going into a second round of these in-depth articles? Did you know you were going to be doing multiple rounds of articles? Did this all kind of happen at once?
Yeah, I knew. You know, we typically do 2 covers on a Star Wars thing with lots of, you know, inside stories in between. So, you know, we tend to do like a first look cover and then, you know, something a little closer to time of release. And we usually try to aim around the Thanksgiving time or have the first one hit like in the summertime. And so the Thanksgiving one is like the second look. And it's a little challenging when they're not like, because the first time around they're like, okay, here, let's talk about the porgs and the caretakers, and you can reveal like some actual new things. And this time around there weren't so many like new revelations, just I think sort of deeper insights into the relationships between the characters, because they're breaking up the teams, you know, and sort of how the characters, who they are closest to, whether they're friend or foe, and how that person diverts the gravity of that character's story arc.
When you look back, comparing the the saga films anyway, the Force Awakens coverage compared to The Last Jedi, visiting both productions, what is the differences between the two? Is it more of just a familiarity going the second time around with the actors and the characters? Is that the main difference, or is it just a complete
for the movie, like the second time around interviewing these actors, or you mean like?
Yeah, second time, going back and covering this saga film in comparison to The Force Awakens.
Oh, I think like the actors who've been through it once are way more relaxed. You know, like the first time around, every time that somebody's new to a Star Wars film, and it doesn't mean like whether you're Kelly Marie Tran and you're sort of like this is your big breakthrough. I mean, she's made some TV appearances and videos and stuff like that, but like this is her first major film role. Or you're Laura Dern, you've made many films, scores of films over the years. Even so, when you're new to Star Wars, you're like really hesitant to talk about it because you don't know what you're giving away. Like, for instance, I was trying to talk to Kelly Marie Tran about this device that her character holds. You've seen her, like, have you seen, like, the toy has this little, like, gadget that looks like it might be a thumb drive or something.
Looks like a screwdriver or something.
Like she was just real hesitant to talk about what that is, and and then like the studio Lucasfilm people were like, oh no, it's a very simple explanation for that, which I can't say just yet because I'm gonna do a little piece on it, but like
nice,
okay,
but
right.
You know what I mean, and it's not like, oh wow, it's a mind blower that's what that is. It's just sort of like it's just like she was hesitant to say whether it was a tool or a weapon or what it was. And
you're like referring to her jacket. You got a yellow jacket, and she's like, "Can I say that it's maize?" Like just every little detail has to be like, "It's not yellow. I don't know if I can reveal that or not."
So you're confirming that this little device isn't going to blow up Starkiller Base 2 in the episode 9.
Perfect.
But it's a device for locating your car keys. Is really what it is.
Perfect.
But
I need that.
Like Daisy and John were the same way on the first movie, and way more chill this time around.
Was it cool to see that kind of like, I guess growth is the best word from them? Like going from like they were basically, I mean, John had been in Attack the Block, and then Daisy had been in pretty much basically nothing. So from going to that to like seeing like these like confident like people, was that cool to see? Because like they're superstars now.
Yeah, I mean I think it's great to see them have success. They're nice people and they worked hard. So I'm real thrilled for them. I just remember back when The Force Awakens was coming out, I moderated the Q&A for The Force Awakens when they did Star Wars Celebration, and the night before, like, we just sat around talking about what we can reveal. And at that point, all anybody had seen was that one Thanksgiving teaser that was very impressionistic. It just had the dialogue from Snoke, and you didn't know who was saying it, or you didn't know what this ball droid was, or who this girl was on the speeder, or who this guy was in the stormtrooper uniform. And it was like, finally, can we say he's an actual stormtrooper, not somebody in disguise, and that she's a scavenger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Kylo Ren wasn't Luke.
Yeah, exactly. So it was sort of like just the basics, and like talking about like what they could say and what they couldn't say was a lot of fun. And so it was interesting now this time around to see, John Boyega in particular is just like very quick. I think he told me a lot about like the story that I even held back on because I thought maybe it gave away a little too much. But, I think at this point he's like, well, I'm in. You can't get rid of me now. But he was way more careful the second time around. I think maybe he just maybe I just charmed him into spilling the beans a little more on who DJ was.
Go.
But
Nice.
Nicely done.
But even Laura Dern was like very cautious, and I was like, well, here's what Rian told me about the character, and then she was like, oh, okay, cool, and then she could talk about it. It's always good to talk to the filmmaker first because they have a better sense of what's an actual secret, and they can say like, oh no, this device that she uses is not. It's not a spoiler to say what that is, you know.
You kind of touched on this a little bit before. There are things you know. Is it that you can't let other people know, secrets, details that, can't be public? How do you feel about that information as a fan? Is it a lot? Is it a little?
Oh, like, does it ruin the movie for me to know that stuff?
Yeah, like we know you're a Star Wars fan first and foremost, but you have this job where you luckily get to report on that stuff. But at the same time, like, how much do they give you and let you kind of write your own article, or do they just give you like a certain amount and then you just kind of like tailor that?
It's a weird thing to like that term, like they give you, like sometimes they have things they're ready to talk about, like, and then sometimes I'm surprised, so I come in with my list of questions and nobody sees that in advance. And I'm basically like, with somebody like Rian or Kathy Kennedy, it's like, all right, I'll get like 40 minutes to an hour with them. And, fortunately, it often goes over time. But even then, I never reach a point where I'm like, geez, I'm out of questions. You know what I mean? Like, there's always more you can talk about and go into a little bit. Like, sometimes, like, just talking about Rey and Luke, the first time we did a cover story, talking about that with Rian Johnson, it was like, I realized, oh, shoot, we've talked about this for, like, 15 minutes, like we're gonna have to move on to some other topics, and
right.
Just to get it all in, and it's interesting when people do compelling work. There's a lot to talk about, and I don't feel like, oh, it's been spoiled for me. They manage to keep enough things under wraps, and then even if I hear something that's not through official channels, maybe it's true or maybe it's not. Like, I'd heard that Han Solo, I don't know, is it kosher to say that he
Yeah, I think we're good. Spoiler for a two.
He has gray hair.
Spoiler
he had
for
gray hair in The Force Awakens, and it turned out to be true. I wasn't sure, But, I'd heard what would happen to him, but I even up until he walked out onto that little bridge, I was like, nah, they're not gonna do it.
They're not gonna do it. Yeah.
You mean that bridge with no railings on the side?
That's got to be a safety violation of some kind.
I'm going to break some news here about one of their standalone films.
Oh, really?
That's coming up. It's really about the galactic version of OSHA and operations and safety hazards. Like, there's a real...
Which is what the fans have been demanding for years.
It's kind of like a docudrama. It really examines, how could they build this space station with this port hole that just is like a self-destruct button, and there are no railings anywhere. The throne room has a giant just chasm where the emperor just fell down into it one day, the ultimate I've fallen and I can't get up. Anyway, I'm joking around here, but I got off topic. But I know things, and I hear things, and then they share things, and I ask questions, and a lot of times I'm like, well, we can't talk about that. But I don't feel it really ruins it. This is a fun job that I have, and I'm not gonna gripe about learning things. If anything, the hard part is I want to tell you guys and tell the fans stuff that's cool, but I don't want to spoil it. Like, my daughter, she's 8 years old, and I go into her class every month, and we have a little reading session, right, where I'll read a story to them, and then we'll talk about the story and about creativity and about writing and how you can invent anything you want when you write a story. That's awesome. And this week I'm going to go in on Friday and talk about journalistic writing and writing about things that are real, and you can't just make things up. I mean, you can be creative, but you can't concoct things that you want to be true that aren't true. And the teacher told the class, that I'd be coming and doing this, and my daughter was like, when I picked her up from school today, she was like, but the kid said, no, right away, no spoilers. And I was like, I love the third grade class, and I was like, no, don't spoil the movie for me. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so I think the hard part is I want people to be excited and interested in the movie and talk about what's cool, but I also do not want to give away twists and turns. So when I find them, I will sometimes hold them back. Like, I never saw the value of saying, 3 weeks out, hey, here's what the post-credit sting is on the new Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to read that or know that if I was a fan of these movies, but I might want to know, like, what's cool about the costumes, or where we find these characters, or what are the stakes this time around, what kind of interesting creations are being, in Star Wars terms, like the creatures or vehicles, like what are we gonna see, But I don't want the plot spoiled so much, So, but I kind of endure that. That's sort of the job.
Yeah, I actually, I just kind of made a personal note today that I'm going to, because I can't do it with Star Wars. It's just not possible. But I am going to attempt to try to avoid all marketing for Infinity War. So I did not watch that trailer that came out recently. And I don't know, I kind of understand where you're coming from with the whole like spoiling of marketing information.
Yeah. Our job is to ask some questions and try to figure out what the fans want to know and make it fun and exciting without spoiling it. And then, but also cover it when it's, like with Rogue One, they had some big reshoots and all that. Sometimes it's not all fun and exciting. Sometimes it's a little nervous making, So you got to talk about that stuff too.
I do have a question for you, and I know it's kind of like a weird question to ask, but you were on set with Carrie during The Last Jedi filming. Did you get to spend a significant amount of time with her? Is there possibly like a last time you were with her story, maybe?
No, I was not on the set of this movie.
So you didn't actually visit the set. It was more of a, did you do it like, did you talk to these people over the internet, or how did this work?
I did a lot of phone interviews and you do some in-person interviews, but during the set was locked down. I'm not aware of any journalist who got on the set of these Star Wars movies. And believe me, I tried to crack it. Even the Vanity Fair stories, they let Annie Leibovitz come and shoot, but I don't think the journalist gets to hang around the set. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I guess we were kind of coming from a different perspective, thinking, that you had the opportunity to kind of visit the set, and that's where we're asking questions about, like, what do you know and what that you can't tell people. I guess it makes a lot more sense now that you just get your questions asked, to these people and stuff like that.
Even when I do set visits, they wouldn't invite you to come on a day where they were shooting something that was locked down. In fact, they chase away some of the crew on these movies when they have something that they don't want to be done. Did you know on Empire Strikes Back, they were so... And this was, that's what shot... I guess it would have been shot in like 1979, right? That was way before the internet and spoiler culture, and they still were worried that the Darth Vader twist would leak out. So when they performed that scene on the gantry in Cloud City, David Prowse said, "No, I did not kill your father. Obi-Wan or Obi-Wan killed your father."
One killed your father, yeah.
And Mark's reaction to, "No, that's not possible," was, played to that, although he knew the real thing. He knew the real story. So he was able to adjust a little bit. And
wasn't David Prowse really ticked off that no one told him till he saw the movie?
And the crew was all like, "Oh, that's cool." And then in one of the British papers there was a leak, and they wrote a little story that said Obi-Wan will be revealed as the secret villain of Star Wars. He's not a good guy.
Wow.
He killed Anakin Skywalker. And it's funny that they were correct to hide that fact, because it did leak out. It reminds me of like on Walking Dead, when they kill a major character, they'll kill a bunch of others too.
Yeah, just
shoot it.
Yeah,
you don't know. You don't know which one it's gonna be, and that way it kind of preserves the secret. I think it's sort of like that, but no, they've been pretty locked down on these films, and I'm hoping they'll, loosen up a little bit like Marvel has. Marvel has us onto the set, but I see things like on a Marvel set, that are spoilerish for sure.
Gotcha.
Oh wow.
You just
I mean, I see it in terms of we don't like it, I guess, because of the protection, but it's like they're doing it. They're like the parents saying, "We're doing it for your own good,
Yeah.
so you enjoy the movie."
yeah, but then also sometimes there'll be a negotiation where I'm like, well, come on, man. Like that's not a spoiler. And they'll say like, oh, we really don't want that out there. I'll be like, I don't know. I'll push. Like Marvel's a good example of this. Like I went onto the set of the Civil War film, right, shooting in Georgia, and they turned this parking lot into the airport, the German airport that they have that big fight scene in. Are you guys Marvel fans too? Or
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So that big fight sequence where you've got the two sides running at each other, and like I got to see that being shot. These guys like just so it's one reason they have me on a day like that is because I'm there to interview actors, so like you want all the actors together. You can see some of the interaction between them. You don't want a day where it's just one guy. You know what I mean? Just two guys. And so I see them all run at each other and they brawl. And then like there are a bunch of other characters just hanging around who maybe aren't in that shot, but are in that scene that are necessary for like pickups and background shots and things like that and resets. So there's this Spider-Man hanging around. And I'm like, it's not Tom Holland. It's just a dude in a Spider-Man suit, right? Stuntman. And I'm like, well, I guess Spider-Man's in this movie. And it's weird to talk about this now because now we all know. Of course he's in the movie. But like at the time,
right,
it wasn't clear that he would be. They had just made that deal. So
there's scenes in the trailers for those movies that are in the final version, but in the final version, Spider-Man's in the shot, but in the trailers, he wasn't in those shots.
Oh, really?
They added him in. Yeah.
So I was like, well, looks like Spider-Man's in this film. And there's like a guide around shepherding you, like a unit publicist, and the publicist from the studio comes to make, coordinate the interviews and everything, introduce you around. And they were all like, whoops. And they're like, well, I think that's a joke, or I think that guy's just, I don't know if that's just like for a prank or something.
Trying to play it off.
And I was like,
he's an intern. He's the caterer.
I was like, well, that's a real good joke.
He just showed up to work in a Spider-Man suit.
Just hanging around there. And then I was like, this was like immediately after walking on the set too. Like this wasn't even like hanging around for the day. And then I was like, okay, well, all right, I'm going to go, where's the restroom? They have like those little honey wagon trucks. Like, oh, it's over here. So I walk over to the restroom. I'm going up to the restroom. I look over. There's a trailer. The trailer door opens. Out walks Robert Downey Jr. with Tom Holland. He's got his arm around Tom Holland. Wow. And I thought Tom Holland was in his street clothes. He was actually in costume as Peter Parker for that scene they shoot in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And I was like, to the publicist, I was like, well, what do you know? Not only is there Spider-Man on set, but Tom Holland himself was here. And
he just likes to. He's just pulling a prank,
Maybe he's just visiting the set. I was like, yeah, maybe, and just hanging out, talking to Robert Downey, But they were cool about it. And when the time came to write that story, I was able to say, look, it's gonna come out that he's in this movie. So let's talk about it, and
that's cool.
Really cool.
And they were, okay. So you can
that's awesome. So when they give you the okay, are you just like inside like, yes, nailed it?
Yeah, I was excited for that. So
let me ask you one more thing, Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
About a year ago, you were on Rebel Force Radio, if you remember. At the time, you were saying, some pretty confident things about how Lucasfilm isn't going to be moving into working on the Kenobi stuff, if that's even like really, it's not quite official yet, until they're after the main trilogy. Are you still in that state of mind by chance?
Well, yeah, and then the word came out that Stephen Daldry was in talks to direct it, so, that seems to be moving forward. Although they haven't made it official, but it's one of the standalones that they're exploring making.
So do you still think that's not going to happen at all? They're not even going to start production until after 9 is completed? Is that like a post this trilogy setup, or do you think they're going to start production on it?
Well, when you say start production, like, in a sense, they're probably already writing screenplays and such. Well, and you know what? Actually, maybe not, because a lot will depend on what happens in Episode 9.
Right.
But I mean, it's not possible that they'll get it done before Episode 9. You know what I mean? Because next.
Do you think there's going to be a Kenobi involvement in this trilogy still?
Yeah.
In what? In how big of a magnitude, in your opinion?
I don't know. That I don't know. I mean, like,
do you think Rey's connected to her in terms of familial connections or in any way?
I think I put forth that theory, and I think it's still a good possibility. You know, sometimes with like showrunners on a TV show, they'll have a plan, and then like the fans figure out the plan, and they'll have to be like, shit, let's like rearrange the plan. And because they kind of guessed where we were going, and then they'll adjust. And it's not like a sour grapes thing, like, well, they changed the plan after we talked about this. I think like there's so many fan theories out there, but I think that's certainly one possibility for her, and or just the notion that like Kenobi is involved in some way with these actions. I think is I think likely. You know, I didn't expect him to be in The Force Awakens, and there he was in that Force back sequence. So
True.
So, do you think that'll be we'll actually see Ewan McGregor in the form of a Force ghost? Do you think it'll just be more voice stuff, or do you think that,
or just references?
Yeah, I would guess more references.
Yeah,
they don't seem to be Force ghost people. These guys, this new crop,
Well,
you know. So
yeah, I mean, we don't know a whole lot about The Last Jedi, but we didn't get Force Ghosts really in the first version, A New Hope, back in the day. You know what I mean? We didn't really experience Force Ghosts at all until the second movie, so maybe it's in there somewhere. We just don't know. I don't know.
Force ghosts are always a little. Let's be honest. That's one of the cheesier elements of Star Wars.
Especially Obi-Wan's being tired and sitting on a log.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's different if it's like a vision or something, but it's like I'm basically a hologram and I'm going to have a seat, you know? Like, or we're going to be watching the party creepily from the periphery, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to look like my old self, not my current
There you
self.
go.
But I mean, like, that brings up a great question about ghosts. Why do ghosts wear clothes?
I always thought that the Force Ghost element in the new trilogy could be kind of difficult, considering you run into these things like, well, how long can we have an actor show up? Like, maybe with someone like Yoda, it makes sense to have him continually show up as a Force Ghost, but I mean, you can't have Ewan McGregor forever. You know, you can't have, you know, Liam Neeson keep showing up year after year after year if she's connected to Qui-Gon or whatever, you know. So that kind of makes it weird. But we have one other huge story to talk about in the news. We're going to try to get through it. It was actually a article from Rolling Stone that also came out this week with some new information about the characters in The Last Jedi and the actors playing them. First thing right off the top, we got a great new cover with Kylo Ren, Rey, and Luke Skywalker all standing in new positions that we haven't seen before, unlike a lot of the posters that we've been getting. They look great. Both Daisy Ridley and Gwendolyn Christie talked about how important it is for, you know, Star Wars and this society, with Gwendolyn saying during testing times, there's nothing wrong with being transported by art. I think we all need it. Many of us are united in our love for this one thing, you know. More after that, she talked about how the trailers so far have seemed to be heavy and dark, but she wants everyone to remember that Star Wars is fun and that you're going to have a good time in the theaters. There was a lot discussing Carrie Fisher. Rian Johnson had some things to say about how much of the movie was changed after her passing. He said, "We didn't end up changing a thing, luckily. We had a totally complete performance from her. It was a sad reality in terms of going forward. Time will tell what ends up getting done." It's clear that Rian here had a lot of freedom making choices about the movie. With the help of Lucasfilm, they are going to guide the story in the best way they can. Last but not least, the article was also talking about Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, giving their feelings on the characters, motivations, and even looking from the outside in, Adam talking about why he was motivated to play the character in the first place, and Daisy even saying that she absolutely loves, you know, playing Rey and everything about Star Wars, but she thinks that after this trilogy, she's most likely going to hang up her hat. John, I'm going to throw it to you. There's a lot in here. Right off the cuffs of that, I mean, do you think that Daisy's comments here are accurate? Do you think she's really done with Star Wars after Episode 9?
Man, I was shocked when I read that because, the Rolling Stone interview is chugging along, and in that Rolling Stone way, it touches with politics, touches with society. They talk about themes of the movie and that we've heard from Rian Johnson and all the other actors before, and then at the end, they just pop you in the face like Buster Douglas to Tyson, and Daisy Ridley's just like, no, I'm done. Like, I'm going to end it after 9. And I'm surprised she would say it this early because she's not even done filming her parts for this trilogy. What if she changes her mind? Like, she gave such a definitive no several times to the writer. That's what shocked me. But my other takeaways, besides that, where I do like how Rian Johnson is trying to remind people that this is still Star Wars, and as dark as the promotion is, we can harken back to The Force Awakens where some of the trailers look pretty heavy too, but that was also a lighthearted, fun movie that reminded us a little bit of the light aspects of earlier Star Wars films. So he keeps saying that this is going to be a fun, funny movie, which we haven't really seen too much of. Also, the thing about how nobody dictated a single plot point, he keeps hammering that over the head because people keep thinking that there's some grand design already printed out by George Lucas or Lucasfilm or George Lucas that they just have to be a robot and fall in line. And he keeps emphatically saying that he got to make the decisions. He decided what happened next. And ultimately, the last thing, them talking about Luke and why he's the important hero, because he's been through the mud and been through awful things. And he said that's the life of a hero, man. That's what you've got to do to be your hero. You have to watch your loved ones burn to death. So those are my takeaways from this article, which I thought was a lot more revealing than I expected. So I was very happy to hear that, but not happy to hear that Daisy already is talking about hanging them up in such a definitive manner.
Well, obviously, right off the bat, like it's Daisy saying that she's done after 9. Like John said, I was actually, when we talked about that in the group chat today, I was like, are you sure that doesn't sound right? But after thinking about it a little bit, I think she may be... This, like I said, like we've said before, this was her first movie. This is her first major role. She may be in a way that Harrison Ford was kind of tired of playing Han Solo after Return of the Jedi, or after Empire, thinking that he should die in the end of it. Maybe she thinks that this is the way that, and we're saying this without knowing what happens in 9. Something could happen in 9 where she's not around anymore. I doubt that will happen, but I think we're a little bit premature on this, and I think that if we ask her after we've done all the other standalones and the new trilogy from Rian, and you ask her 10 years from now, her ideas may be a lot different. She may want to return to the character. There may be something interesting to it. So I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in that, but I understand where she's coming from. Now the Rian Johnson's hammering home the nobody did Lucasfilm dictated makes sense to me, and I think that if that weren't true, he wouldn't have gotten his own trilogy after it, because now he's kind of got creative freedom for this one and the next one, so he had enough creative juice in that one to go to some completely different place, which I believe, and I think that the reason he's doing it is because you've had Rogue One and the Han Solo movie with the reshoots and kind of clashing with Kathleen Kennedy and just the higher ups over there, so I think that's kind of why he kind of addressed it, because people are, I don't know from Anthony's experience, or like you talked a little bit about talking about Rogue One and the reshoots and stuff like that. I mean, you kind of have to ask about it, so I think that's probably just a reporter asking a question.
Anthony, I know there's a lot in this article, and I don't even know if you really got a chance to check it out, but in my description, did anything pop out to you as like something interesting?
The Rolling Stone story? Yeah, it sounds interesting. Nothing against them. When did that come out? I haven't had a chance to read it.
Today.
Yeah.
I was in Avengers Infinity War land, so
sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
I didn't get a chance to read it, but it sounds cool. Like, I'll read it. I like their work.
Well, really, that's about all the news that we had this week. I mean, we had a lot of the EW articles covered this week and last week, and then now we've got this article. It's great to kind of pick your brain a little bit, Anthony. John, do we have anything else that happened this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's episode 94 of the Resistance broadcast, so I thought it'd be appropriate if we head to Docking Bay 94 to blast off into this week's rundown. So let's punch it. The Last Jedi tops photos of the day keep rolling out. I know James loves these. The past 2 days, we've seen Kylo Ren, First Order Enforcer, and Resistance pilots Kai Threnali. I probably butchered that. The cards can be yours for $10 each, to which my grandpa would probably respond, in my day, you could buy a Buick for $10. But all 20 cards are available for a limited time, so if you have $200 laying around that you don't want to spend on relatives this holiday season, have at it. Or you can just screenshot them and print them out at Walgreens, right, James?
Absolutely. $200 for 20 cards.
For 20 cards, it's crazy. But yeah, let's check in with Comics with Kenobi for this week's comic reviews.
Hello, Resistance Broadcast. This week's comics are a bounty of stories that run up and down all aspects of the 3 Star Wars trilogies with tie-ins, reference, and events that span an era from the Republic to the First Order. Poe Dameron 21 will have special appeal to fans of Padme, as well as the story of Lor San Tekka leading up to the events of The Force Awakens. In Mace Windu 4, readers are taken back into Mace's time as a Padawan, giving us a glimpse of what hardened his determination and adherence to the rules of the Jedi Order, even as he deals with a fellow Jedi who strayed from the past. Finally, in Star Wars Adventures 4 from IDW Publishing, Luke and Leia are on a mission for the Rebellion, traveling to a planet aboard their spaceship, the Brea? Also out is the collected Rogue One adaptation from Marvel. We regard this as the director's cut of the film, so it's definitely worth picking up for some new scenes and dialogue. It really enhances the film's story. New next week, Darth Vader number 9. Can't wait for that one. Back to you, Resistance Broadcast.
Hey, thanks, Matt. You always follow those guys at Comics with Kenobi for your weekly comic updates, and they'll always throw some recommendations your way. The cast of The Last Jedi have begun their TV promo tour. Both Daisy Ridley and John Boyega appeared separately on Good Morning America, so we should expect a lot more humble brags from our friend at GMA, Jeff Lowe, next time he comes on our show. Both Ridley and Boyega separately appeared on Live with Kelly and Not Regis. At least that's what I think that show's called now. And nothing major was revealed in these spots. Just simple promos for the everyday movie-going audience out there. Not crazy, obsessed, sweaty fans like ourselves. But Daisy did go on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, had a fun segment playing the whisper game with him, trying to lip-read Star Wars-related words and phrases with Princess Leia hair-bun headphones on, which is pretty funny. Boyega did give a quick, small reveal which pertains to everyone's favorite new creature, the Porgs. He said that more than one Porg may make it onto the Falcon at some point in The Last Jedi. And what would Star Wars promotion be without Mark Hamill? He went on Ellen and was pitted against a child movie expert named Britton Walker in Star Wars Trivia, where not only did Hamill lose, he got shut out completely. So props to Britton Walker for taking down Luke Skywalker. For the full articles on these stories and all of your latest Star Wars news, reviews, and information, be sure to head to StarWarsNewsNet.com, and that is your Scoundrels Rundown. Let's check in with Bill to find out if the Force is with us this week. So Chewie, smack that Porg and get us out of here.
Thank you, John. In the words of the late, great Samuel L. Jackson, take a seat. Our first story for today is we got new dialogue shown in a behind-the-scenes Cinemark Noovie ad, where we got new dialogue between Rey and Luke Skywalker. Rey saying, "We need your help," and Luke saying, "You think I came to the most unfindable place in the galaxy for no reason at all?" So I'm going to start with our guest today. Anthony, is the Force with you with this new dialogue, and are you excited for The Last Jedi? The answer is yes.
No, I see it. I got a lot of holiday shopping to do. That was a joke response.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Absolutely. Okay. John Hoey, is the Force with you?
In terms of the dialogue being revealed, I'm kind of done with that. Like James was saying, he's trying to not take on any Marvel stuff. At this point on, with 10 days to go, and shorter for me, humble brag, I don't want to take on any more dialogue or anything like that. Like, I just want to give me 10 days, I'll see it in the movie. So I know this was shown at the Noovie features and behind the scenes stuff in the theaters, so people can't really jump out of their seat and leave or plug their ears. But I'm all set with this new dialogue, so I'm going to say the Force is not with me on this.
Gotcha. And James Baney, is the Force with you?
I'm gonna go with the Force is not with me on the fact that it's just like a simple line, and I do kind of understand where it's coming from. It could possibly mean like, okay, you know, he really meant to go to the planet like on purpose to hide himself away. But I think all those things we kind of knew anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. It's not really that big of a spoiler. But I mean, the behind the scenes are cool, and I think it's important to show behind the scenes type stuff in the theaters for fans that maybe don't. They are aware that maybe there's a new one coming out, but they don't go out of their way to look at the Comic-Con stuff and stuff like that. So, Force is not with me on one single sentence.
I do love that people already got mad that they used the word unfindable, even though it's a real word. Like, people were already giving Rian Johnson crap. Like, why are you using a word like unfindable?
Yeah. So for me, I guess I'm going to go ahead and say the Force is with me. It's good to see. I know we've seen him in trailers talking a little bit, but like seeing him actually like talk and interacting with Rey is really cool. And I'm obviously very excited to see the scene play out in The Last Jedi. All right. So our next story is Rian Johnson did a lot of Q&As this week, but he did a Facebook Live Q&A where he answered a couple questions and revealed a couple of pictures. He answered that he was hired for The Last Jedi when J.J. Abrams was starting to shoot The Force Awakens, and he revealed that they built over 125 sets for The Last Jedi for 110 days of shooting. So, James, seeing these pictures, hearing what Rian Johnson revealed, is The Force with you?
There's a lot that went into the movie, and I expected there to be a lot into the movie. When I hear the actual numbers of how much work went into it, it is staggering. I would say that generally, though, on these behind-the-scene questions, and I think John's going to pop in with the same mindset. I know from behind the scenes, we've been talking about it. But it was kind of weird that he just kind of answered the random questions. You know what I mean? There wasn't any sort of intention behind which questions he was answering. He was kind of answering what's your favorite flavor of pie or favorite color or stuff
Butterscotch.
like that.
The deep cut stuff.
There was some cool stuff in there, but I think overall the Force was not with me. I think they could have handled a question and answer from the fans a little bit better, but I think that does kind of fall on the fans for asking dumb questions. So Force is not with me.
John Hoey, is the Force with you?
The Force is not with me because I asked a question to him on Twitter that I thought was good and it got some support, but then he chose the fluff questions, which is fine because he doesn't want to get into too much. But because I had asked him about his new trilogy and gave it a shot, but I wanted to find out if there was going to be opening crawls in his new trilogy. Sue me. The Force is not with me. I do like hearing that he said there were more set pieces and more digital shots than in Rogue One and Force Awakens combined. But it wasn't earth-shattering to me. And the behind-the-scenes pics, like, people were like, oh, my God, these are fantastic. I mean, I don't know. It looks like someone took them with a flip phone out of their pocket. So the Force is not with me on Rian Johnson's Q&A and the black and white behind-the-scene photos.
Mr. President, is the Force with you?
Nah, I mean, it was cute. But, like, they were pretty... not even fluff questions, but just... I guess...
This is hard-hitting journalism, Anthony.
Just sort of like... I think it was just a chance to respond. I mean, they were lighthearted questions, and that's fine. It's just sort of like...
Yeah.
I'm always amazed at, like, the questions are like, what's your favorite scene? And, like... That's so vague that it's hard to get a good answer with that. Like even if you do a slight variation on that question, like what was the hardest scene to make? You know, what was the thing you wanted to, or which scene did you have in mind from the moment you started putting together the story that you couldn't wait to get to? You know, I think sometimes just by saying what's your favorite thing, your brain doesn't have enough information to go to a good place, right? You need, if I said to you, well, what's your favorite podcast? How many podcasts have you guys done? 94? Is this 94? That's a lot to choose from. What's your favorite one? It's hard to go to that. If I say, what was the one that was the most, like, traumatic, I'll bet you go to that one. What was the biggest?
Not to mention he can't even answer that question because his favorite scene might be something that he can't tell you about.
Yeah.
My favorite scene was the one where, Luke wrecked shop and killed Snoke. You know what I mean? Like,
but beating up...
That was his favorite scene. That's his real answer, but he can't talk about that. So it's like a silly question in the first place.
You gotta figure also, these questions aren't aimed at you and me. These are questions that are aimed... I mean, they're aimed at him, but he's responding to them for the sake of people who are not deep Star Wars fans, you know? So you've got to attract some of the casual people. So I'm not going to criticizes answering the question. They were
Half
fine.
of our
They just weren't-
listeners were the people answering the question.
I mean, like, I would
or
say,
asking
like,
them.
you know, you can slap these questions down, but it's sort of like slapping a pork, you know?
So Anthony, what you're trying to say is you're not going to describe Daisy Ridley in 2 words.
Yeah, like those kind of like questions I just don't understand. Like, why 2 words?
Yeah, they were strange choices, but I guess I understand it.
Describe your favorite scene in 3 words.
It's
Word,
pretty cool.
chewy, slap.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Ray was there. Like,
Describe your favorite scene using no vowels. Like, just
But anyway, the Force is kind of with meh a little bit. Doesn't really reveal anything. It's cool seeing some behind the scenes stuff, but it's scenes that we've already seen. So the Force is kind of with meh. And our final story for today is Empire. I feel like we're talking about other magazines beside Entertainment Weekly, but Empire has done a new spread on The Last Jedi with new covers, exclusive snowtrooper photos, and a new picture of Snoke. And they also got the opportunity to talk to Andy Serkis about who Snoke is and a little bit of his motivation and how he would describe him. Saying, Snoke is bloody dark, way darker than Palpatine. He's riddled with this osteoporosis, so his body's twisted like a corkscrew. He's incredibly damaged, so there's a bizarre vulnerability about him. Beneath that vulnerability, though, is this intense hatred. He's definitely not a Sith, but he's certainly at the darker end of the Force. Without giving too much away, that begins to unfold a little in this one. So let me start with you, John. Reading these, listening to these comments, and seeing a little bit of the pictures that Empire gave us, is the Force with you with this story?
It is. Mainly because I almost sometimes forget that Andy Serkis is in Star Wars, and that's my fault. But for 2 reasons. One, every time I see a new picture of Snoke, I'm like blown away. And we've talked about this in earlier episodes, how when you do a performance capture, you can always tell the eyes, tell whether or not it's an actual living thing or not. Like, if you had put sunglasses on Tarkin in Rogue One, I'd be like, oh, Peter Cushing's back, except he looks like a Blues Brother. But the Snoke, like, when they show Snoke's eyes and even his, like, disgusting old man eyebrows, like, I am seeing a living thing, whether it's a human or humanoid. And then these quotes, I like it, but it concerns me a little bit that they're going a little too, let's do a bigger Death Star thing here. Whereas, like, Starkiller Base in Han Solo's like, yeah, it's bigger. And now they're going to be like, oh, Snoke, yeah, he's like Palpatine, but he's eviler and darker. So as long as they make him different, which it does sound like they're making him a little different, more like a Kim Jong-il dictator who likes luxuries and fancy things, and he's more out for revenge than power, as we talked about last week. But I am on board with this. I am curious to see what else they come out with. I guess by the time everyone hears this is already going to be out. But for us, I believe this pops tomorrow, so I'm curious to see what else they put out there. But I like what I see, so the Force is with me.
Anthony, you hear these comments? Is the Force with you?
Yeah, it's with me. I love Empire, and I think they do a great job. And even though we're rivals, I think that they're very worthy rivals, and it's a privilege to keep up with them. So good on them for getting some new images. I've seen the covers. I haven't read the story yet, but my issue will be here soon.
Perfect. Awesome. And James Baney, is the Force with you?
I'm about 50-50 on this. I buy the Stormtrooper or the Snowtrooper cover, or the picture. I love that. I think that looks really cool. I'm actually kind of I agree with John in the most part with all the new Snoke information, but this picture, just for some reason, it kind of felt like pictures I'd seen before, so I wasn't really blown away with that, so I'm kind of selling that. I like some of the covers. I really like the red Kylo, the blue Rey. That's really cool. I despise the Porg, subscriber edition cover. If that came to my house, if I would throw it down that chasm Anthony was talking about earlier in the throne room of the Death Star. I really dislike it a lot.
You would give Palpatine's corpse some reading material.
There you go.
Yes. As far as the new information and stuff like that, that stuff was all pretty cool. So I'm just gonna say I 50% feel the Force on this one.
Okay.
I 50% feel the Force.
Just 50-50. All right.
Yeah.
So the Force is, I guess it's it's more 75% with me than 50% with me. I love hearing Andy Serkis talking about the character way darker than Palpatine. That's a really, really cool line. He kind of talks about the damage and all that stuff. I really like that. Really, really cool stuff. So the Force is 75% with me, I guess. So that's all I've got for you guys. Thank you so much for taking a seat with us. John, back to you.
All right, right on. Now we're going to take it to our segment called Tweeting with the Resistance. That's where we take your questions and comments and things that we throw at you and you throw back at us, and we throw them out in the episode. We usually pick the best ones. But I am going to put Anthony on the spot here since he is our guest of the hour, since he was so kind to say that he will answer almost all of the ones that we received, which is about 8 or so. So, Anthony, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Now, this first one is from Evan at Harris Ev. And Anthony, just so you know, this guy always kills it. He always gives us like the top comments and top questions and stuff. So he asked, hey, Anthony, how much does Lucasfilm regulate what you can say regarding the interpretation of the information they give you for EW coverage?
How much does Lucasfilm regulate? Well, I mean, if they don't want to answer something, they'll say, like, I can't talk about that, or let's not go there. Like, I wanted to know, like, sort of how BB9E fit into the story, and they didn't want to give that away.
Okay.
So,
Do you encounter that often?
well, yeah, I mean, there's always stuff I want to know, and then you don't even know what's a spoiler and what's not. Sometimes it's helpful to know what the spoiler is, and you can kind of, like, work your way around it without stumbling into it, you know? And I think that's, they don't regulate it. They don't say, like, I mean, they control which images from the film we get, and a lot of times we'll ask for things, and they, will say no. But then they don't. After the fact, nobody has ever called me once and said, "We got a problem with this," or "We don't. You got this wrong," or maybe like a spelling thing or something. I think Pablo pointed out that I dropped an H in an online version of the story about Octo. One of those rogue H's slipped by me, but never anybody who's like, you've given away too much or you've interpreted this the wrong way. Like, some of it is interpretation. Like, I'm gathering from them what the heart of the story is, what the meaning of it is, and then I'm putting that in my own terms to articulate it. And because often the people who've created something are not great at saying what it means.
That's true.
They'll talk about person you can't stand is a danger to you or a threat to you. But the person you really like, when they turn on you, they can do more damage than anybody. And, Star Wars is the same way. The idea of Rogue One, I try to write with some heart about what these films mean and what they're saying. And so I'll take what they describe to me and say, wow, well, this is how it moved me, just hearing about it or seeing parts of it. So that's where the interpretive thing comes in. But I don't like to theorize about things. I've done a little bit of that game about like Rey's parentage, but not in an overly serious way. Like, I'm not a partisan. Whatever they decide to do with her is fine.
Sure.
I'll like it or I won't. I might theorize, like, I'll bet you Kenobi has something going on here, something to do with this. But otherwise, I try to stay out of that speculation game, and I would rather just sort of interpret the heart of the story.
Nice. The next question comes from Tatooine Sons at Tatooine Sons, and he asked as though you've seen The Last Jedi, but I'll change it for him. Do you think there will be anything in The Last Jedi that will surprise us to the point of, no, I am your father from Empire?
That's a hard one to top.
Yeah.
That's like...
That's the one.
Somebody once said to Joseph Heller, the author of Catch-22, like when he was an old man, a couple of years before he died, they were like, you've written a lot of books, but you've never written anything that tops Catch-22, which was such an early book. You've never written anything that tops Catch-22. And he goes, he absorbed this sort of insulting question. And he said, few have. Which I thought was like a great response, like way to like stick up for your own work, you know, but also say like, kind of like wave your ego around. Like, that's right. I wrote one of the greatest books ever. And it's hard to top for me and anyone. And like, I think that goes for No, I'm Your Father, because I think that's such a great twist. Changes the whole perspective of the series backwards and, you know, looking back and then moving forward. Hopefully they come up with something like that. But I think that's a lot to promise. Let's just hope for some surprises and then be pleasantly surprised if it goes even further.
That's fair. All right, so the next question comes from Han Spinell, at Han_Spinell. And he said, Anthony, do you get a sense that we'll have more questions than answers after we see The Last Jedi?
I think you will get answers to some things. And again, this is guesswork, right? But I think we'll get answers to some things and some things we don't expect answers to. And then there'll be new questions. Like, I think new questions along the lines of what happens to this person now, right? So think of where Empire left us. It didn't leave us with like a lot of doubt, right?
Right.
I mean, like, is Darth Vader telling the truth was like the only question, and that was handled fairly, you know, quickly in Return of the Jedi. It wasn't like, oh, now the revelation was like, yeah, no, that was true. That was for real.
Yeah, exactly.
And it felt true, right? That's why Luke was so upset, because it felt true. But it didn't leave you like, what was that guy about? What's going on here? And who's this girl in the desert? Like, it didn't leave you with the same kind of questions that The Force Awakens left you with. So I think there will be some resolution there. And I also don't think it's not a whodunit. It's not a who created Rey story. So I think they kind of want to get those out of the way, right? And settle those questions so that then they can get to the drama of who survives and who redeems and who turns. That's
a good point. Get some of those things that we've been debating about out of the way, just so that we can move on with the story. Great answer. So the next one comes from Fedi Campo at Fedi Campo. I guess a lot of our listeners just, their names are their handles. That's what I'm finding out here. Now he said, Anthony, in this awesome galaxy that Star Wars has gifted to us, what would you love to see the most coming to canon in the future? And keep being awesome.
What would I love to see the most become canon? So something that's like part of the, what is that called? It's
Legends.
Legends, the expanded universe. Like what? So what would I like to see from that become canon? My answer.
Or open canvas, perhaps. Yeah, perhaps open canvas. Something you would like to see be in the future of canon.
I mean, I would love to see, like, I don't think this will ever happen. Let me preface it by saying that. I would love to see a Star Wars horror story, you know?
Ooh.
Something that takes the Force and these temples and these tombs and makes it a little more of a creepy kind of story. It doesn't have to be like a, Saw movie or something, but like, that one video game, I think it was The Force Unleashed, like one of the concepts was this corpse droid that wants to replace its metallic parts with human parts, sort of the reverse of Darth Vader, and it's ghastly. And it's a cool-ass idea. It's just way too scary for kids. And I think Star Wars has to be somewhat kid-friendly, you know? So, and I think for good reason. So I don't think we'll actually ever see that. But I like scary stories. So I'm like a Stephen King nut. So I think that kind of thing would be cool to see. Like take the Sith, Jedi mythology, the Force mythology, and like give us something spooky with it. But if I were going to take something from the past that exists but is not canon, I loved those little read-along books when I was a kid, and there's one where they go to the planet of the Hoojibs, and I love the Hoojibs, and my kids, I've reintroduced these books to them, so like for a car ride or something, you get the little storybook and it beeps, R2 makes his sound, and that's a signal to turn the page. And it's good because it encourages them to read. I have a son who's 4 years old, and my she's 8, so she can read on her own. But I used to love listening to those books. They're not books on tape, but there's like a tape, right, that goes with it. And Planet of the Hoojibs. Hoojibs were like these little bunny-type creatures, very Porg-like, and they would nibble on droids and electronics. And so they were very mischievous, but they were also they were sentient and they were smart. So my kids love those, and I love Hoojibs, so I would love to see that like somehow work back in.
Very cool. Side note, do you think these Vulptices or Vulptices are sentient? Just your opinion?
Oh, I think they're on a level that we can't even begin to comprehend. They're gem foxes. Like, come on.
They are, yeah.
You know, where have you seen that except on your grandmother's church lapel? Like, it's... Do you like my fox? It's made out of Swarovski crystals. Like, I think it's... I think they're badass creatures. Great. I want to know what they eat. What does a crystal fox eat?
I don't know, but they're those
land
lapel.
Apparently.
Yeah, you think they feast on the salt of?
Yeah,
Crete?
that's how they've survived on that planet. They've adapted. That's how they got their way. Yeah, I guess.
Well, I wonder if the crystal foxes lay on couches covered in plastic, like my grandma used to.
And puncture it.
Yeah, true. All right, and our last question is from Pedro Fernandez at Pedro_Ferna15, and Anthony, he said, "Will you or have you covered the Han Solo movie?"
Well, I have been covering it and all the turmoil there, and so yes, I will cover the Han Solo movie as long as I'm still employed here.
Do you think you're going to get anything as revealing as far as like Entertainment Weekly is going to be covering Solo, like you have the saga films so far?
Yeah, just same as we covered Rogue One.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're just excited to see that stuff come out. You know what I mean? Because it's been so closed shop with Solo. For a long while now that we're hoping to see some stuff. So you are going to be covering it. Have you already talked with anybody, or has it been just kind of from afar?
No, I mean, I did some reporting on the change-ups and sort of what was going on behind the scenes there, but I didn't, I thought I was going to get on that set, and then weirdly they said no, and then like a couple of weeks later the directors got fired, and I was like, oh, that's why.
That's probably why.
Damn.
Because I knew those guys really well, and it felt like, okay, we're like 4 films deep now, like, can we get on the set? And they were like, yeah, I don't know, maybe, no, and then fired. So that explained that. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be covering it. We're
yeah, so we can expect some really hard-hitting, awesome stories from you, from Solo, right?
Absolutely.
When are we looking at, like, because this is still coming out late May.
Is it?
So are you thinking like,
Yeah.
well, that mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, unless you know something, I mean, I'd be shocked if they, this close to its release, are going to say, oh, we're pushing it out. So, I mean, as far as we know it is, but let's say it is. Let's say it's still coming out late May. What we're looking at, it's like a few months before type of release for you guys, or is that not even on your parameter yet?
I mean, yeah, I can't talk about that just yet, but like, I just would be really surprised if it held that release date, wouldn't you?
I mean, we've been holding firm that we think it is going to be held at late May, just because they haven't said one word about it.
It's awfully close for them not to say anything about it. We haven't seen a picture of Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. We've seen a couple behind the scenes things from Ron Howard, but that's it. There's no we have a title finally, but that's essentially it.
We also just got our first real look. I mean, we got a poster before, but we got our first real look today at Infinity War, and that also comes out in May. So it doesn't seem impossible that a giant franchise movie like that could start their marketing this quote unquote late in the game.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think I just would be surprised if it held on, but maybe it will. I'm not saying it won't. I've been surprised that they've held fast to it this long. So,
my final question to you about this, Anthony, because we've been trying to barometer everybody on this thing. How much of this movie do you think was reshot?
I would just be speculating, so I don't want to do that. But I suspect enough of it,
Yeah.
But I also think that there were things that were fine, that didn't need to be reshot.
Right.
So the problem was that the guys weren't shooting some of the scenes that they wanted to have in the movie, and so I just am hesitant to speculate on it because I don't know the answer to how much was reshot, but clearly
That's
not a problem.
fair.
Absolutely.
They were shooting a fair amount, so it wasn't like he was brought in. They were pretty close to wrapping, so he ended up doing a couple more months worth of shooting, so that's pretty significant.
we'll find out in 5 months or so when we check this film out, unless you're saying they push it back to Christmas time, but we will find out soon enough. But that wraps up those questions, and thank you all for submitting your questions, and Anthony, thanks for answering all of those.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Please, everyone out there, continue to follow and tweet at us at RBATSWNN to get your questions answered on the show. And that brings us towards the end here. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Resistance Broadcast. Be sure to go to our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com, for all the articles of the stories we covered today. You can find our show on iTunes, SoundCloud, and our YouTube channel. So whichever format you prefer, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and reviews on iTunes if you love the show, and like our episodes on SoundCloud and YouTube, please. We appreciate your support. We also have a Facebook page, so if you want to hop over there, give us a 5-star rating. We may do some New Year exclusives over there as well. Now, Pat will be back next week, so you can find him on Star Wars News Net's free Cantina forums and on Twitter at Gannon136. I'm John Hoey. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing articles and editorials at Star Wars News Net. We would like to thank our special guest, Anthony Breznican, for taking the time out of his busy schedule to join us tonight. So thank you so much, Anthony. Round of applause for Anthony.
Yes.
Thanks so much. It was a real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for all the kind words.
Anthony, where can everybody find you on social media and things like that?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Breznican. That's spelled Breznican. And I have like a Facebook, like a professional Facebook page that I post. I try not to bury my friends and relatives in Star Wars and Marvel stories. So I save my personal one for kid photos and birthday cakes and things like that. But I have a professional page, Anthony Breznican on Facebook, that you can go to and see my stories and stuff.
Cool.
Very cool.
And
Bill, where can everybody find you?
So,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Sorry.
Absolutely. No worries, man.
No,
Keep plugging.
the whole gamut. Oh, and also, I wanted to bring up once again your novel, Brutal Youth. Can you just, if you want to touch on that real quickly for everyone out there?
Well, I wrote a novel called Brutal Youth. It's like kind of a like Breaking Bad in a high school. Like
cool.
my brother described it as Fight Club meets The Breakfast Club. So it's like it'd be like double crosses and backstabbing and kids trying to destroy each other at a Catholic school in the 90s.
Hey.
Maybe check it out. But I also wrote, I'm part of a collection that's new, I'm very proud of. It's called Behind the Song, and it's all stories inspired by music. And I chose the song Miss Atomic Bomb by the Killers and wrote a piece that was inspired partly by a true story. In the 60s, there was this ad called the Daisy ad that LBJ ran and against Barry Goldwater. It showed a little girl plucking flowers in this black and white ad. She's pulling the petals off and counting down, and as she counts down, there's a nuclear explosion that wipes her out. And the implication was that Barry Goldwater was a crazy person who would cause a nuclear war, and it scared the hell out of America. And it scared people so badly that the little girl's parents were like, never tell anybody that you were the girl in this ad because it was so divisive, right? And that was decades ago. And it was like up until she was like 50, she never came forward and said I was the little girl in that ad. And I thought, how cool would it be if, like, set in a contemporary time, like a little girl does an ad like that. She grows up, she's a teenager, and then a boy in her class figures out who she is. But the twist is that her ad helped elect somebody who actually did become president and actually did create a nuclear war. And so she...
oh, man.
So it's sort of like a little dystopian Twilight Zone type thriller. But it goes on from there. So it's like a little blackmail thriller called Miss Atomic Bomb. And it's in this collection called Behind the Song. So if you like that kind of thing, or it's a YA collection. So like if kids who are into music and also like stories, this is a neat little combination of stories that take their inspiration from a song and do a little twist to it. So thanks for letting me give that a shout out.
Absolutely.
Sure. Is that available now or in the works?
That's available now. It's out there in stores. You can find it on Amazon. Behind the Song.
Awesome. Very cool. And of course, Anthony, we always, anytime you want to come back, we'd love to have you on.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm real happy to be here and talk to you guys, and I appreciate all the kind words about the stories. It makes me happy to know that people are enjoying them. I do my best, so it's nice to hear folks are satisfied.
Absolutely. Now, Bill, follow that up. Where can everybody find you?
I'm on Twitter. Yeah, I write sometimes. I don't have a novel yet, but maybe one day. You can find me on Twitter at Star Wars Bill. You can find me from time to time writing on Star Wars Newsnet. Once again, thank you, Anthony, for coming on, and thank you guys so much for listening.
And James, where can everybody find you, bud?
Well, number one, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks. But you can also find me right now, like today, as you're listening to this episode, or maybe tomorrow, sometime very soon. I'm on a plane currently right now coming back from LA. By the time this comes out, I'll be at the Star Wars Last Jedi Global Press Conference. I'm going to be covering that, and I'm going to be putting some stuff together. So I'm probably going to be making a video, and we're going to be putting that on Twitter and on our YouTube. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube, go to our YouTube and follow that. You can get all our podcasts in kind of video format. But yeah, that's where you can find me, and that's where you can check out some new stuff coming out of the Global Press Conference.
Very cool. And it's always so weird to try to date ourselves when we're recording ahead of time, because you're going to have been there and be on your way back.
Yes.
But thank you once again to our guest, Anthony Breznican. Congrats to our Boba Fett giveaway winner, Debbie Anderson. And thank you, The Resistance, for listening, subscribing, and being so supportive of our show. And we'll catch up with you next week on The Resistance broadcast.
Hey, Akbar, I really like that sweater type thing you have. What do you call that? A sarong?
It's a wrap!